You're listening to the AdCast with your host, Eric Elliott.
I want to give you guys just a little bit of an intro on Steve, and then I'll let Steve kind of take away for it. He's had a successful career, over 20 years in a startup, and also Fortune 500 nonprofit experience in his role before even joining Verblio. And as a CEO, he's excited to expand upon the vision of the company's founders and provide a high-quality and fast, flexible source of developing high-quality content and marketing. Definitely a boss in the industry, none other than Mr. Steve Pockross. Steve, say hello to everyone for us on the AdCast.
Hello, everyone.
Awesome. Steve, for these folks who've never heard of you and never heard of Verblio, let's tell them exactly what Verblio is.
Well, Verblio is a content creation marketplace platform. And what that means is we are a hybrid of a marketplace model of 3,000 highly curated writers that are highly vetted up front and then segmented into 40 different verticals. And we put that on top of a SaaS platform to get content creation done with high quality at scale. Mm-hmm. And we put all of that together to produce 80,000 pieces of unique content a year for our customers, which is about 1,000 active customers every month, mostly digital agencies.
80,000 pieces of content. That's a lot of content. You said you have over 1,000 different people. Now, you know, when you started out, man, you started out in the Bay Area back in the day in the old tech scene, and then you moved out to Colorado before you became the CEO of Verblio. How does one get tapped on the shoulder to say they want you to now be the CEO of Verblio?
How did I get hired as the CEO of Verblio? So it is pretty unique to get hired as the CEO from two founders for a company. We were about $2 million of revenue at the time. Mm-hmm. Usually you buy the company or something else is happening in the marketplace. I was in a pretty unique position. So I was part of one of the foundational marketplace plus SaaS companies, which is called LiveOps. And we started off pretty small and grew to about 20,000 home-based call center agents back in the early to mid 2000s. And I was about employee 30. We grew to about 450 people. We had a bench and $150 million of revenue per year. And we were really innovating this new model of what can you do if you have a marketplace of highly curated talent, and then you have access to great technology and an innovative business model. What can you do with it? Well, you can do some really profound things, and I think we're just scratching the surface of it now. So I had a pretty cool position at that company, one of my favorites ever, which was I was VP of Business Development and Strategy, which basically meant I get to take these two business models, put them together, and figure out new businesses to move into. So we created a partnership marketing business and a financial services business, and we created a lead generation business, and even in basically any sort of workforce that you wanted to put on a platform. We were trying to innovate how to use crowds at scale. And so I took all of that, and then I moved back to my hometown of Colorado when our second kid was on the way. Is a story that many San Franciscans have told in the past, that it's impossible to have children in that city. And I was trying to find my way in the Denver tech scene. And I felt super fortunate that at the time that the founders of Verblio, which was Scott Yates, who's a journalist turned entrepreneur, and he was really looking to find opportunities for other of his journalist brethren in the new economy. What are we going to do next? So he's really looking at the supply of workers as opposed to demand on the client side, which is a pretty unique take to start a company. It really flows through our culture. And the other was a technical co-founder named Wade Green. And they put it together, and they were looking for somebody who really has built this model, seen what it can do, and has a vision for where to take it. Which was pretty cool. The CEO the former CEO, Scott, wrote a very unique LinkedIn post. It said, looking for someone who's Colorado-based, has tech experience, scaling a company very rapidly, doing so on minimal budget because we're a bootstrapped company, has deep interest in marketplace and SaaS, and knows how to put all of that together.
Well, they called you out, man, without even saying your name. How about that?
I really hope I'm the only one, but either way, I'm the only one they found.
So now you talked about them being bootstrapped. You have to have some crazy vision for the two guys who actually found it, for you to come in and say, like, hey, this is where we can be within the next 2 to 3 years. Not to mention you were bootstrapped, so you're not taking big Fortune 500 dollars. So how do you do that? What's the first thing you look at? Is that intimidating when you come in like that, Steve?
Yes. And being a first-time CEO is even a little more intimidating. It's really helpful. The founders are incredibly supportive. Being bootstrapped is really different. It's a very different way to run a company. So I'd been in maybe 5 to 6 investor-backed companies where the mentality is very different. How big could I go? And then how much would I need in order to fund that growth versus what do I need to do for incremental progress? And then you're basically funding your company as a bootstrap company about 6 months behind when you really need those resources because you have to eat what you kill and build out their business model. So I took a few approaches. One is I wanted to have a vision of where we were going. I wanted to differentiate ourselves from the marketplace, and that I think we're just, how do I say this? In most industries, marketplaces, I think, are only being understood for the value of doing scale and low cost. And I really think that we're missing the third tier, which is quality, which is if you think about the business model in a different way, you should be able to achieve new things in the market that others aren't doing. And so the examples are like, you could think of Uber that way, which is you have availability of talent and it's always there and it's cheap, but it's about the commoditization of the people. So how do you use that to actually use skilled talent like writers to get there? And so you have to have that big vision to start with, and then you have to go all the way to the bottom, which is incrementally, what do I need to do to grow now?
Right.
And so I really focused on what I always consider is the most important piece as far as starting off, which is expansion revenue. What else can I sell to my existing clients who already like me? Let's start from there. What else do they need? And then I can build the bigger product innovations later.
Wow. So now, I mean, that's very interesting. But then you said like over 80,000 pieces, over 1,000 writers now, and you mentioned some of these other resources. So can people with doing those kind of numbers, can you still get quality content?
You can, and I think it's going to be the evolution. I think this is what we're trying to do better, and I think there's many effective ways to do this. So one is, the most important thing for me is changing the dynamics of a marketplace.
Okay.
And so most marketplaces are created as, we're going to try to be as big as we can. We want as many people in here as possible, and that is going to define, how good we are. So you'll see so many marketplaces talking about, we have 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 workers. I think that's terrible. I think if you have that many workers, you're not paying attention to what's skilled about them and being able to curate them.
I agree.
So we kind of look at this as a different way. One is we want to be is to balance the right number of talented freelancers who are available, so that we have availability of the work, we can scale quickly. So we've had months where we scaled 20, 25, 30% in a month with that level of talent. But we also want to have enough control so each writer is writing less, or writing more pieces per writer than others. And it also gives us the widest breadth of verticals and kind of subject matter expertise that we can then apply to our different pools. So we have 40 verticals that we write to. My favorite example is that we have 40 verticals that we write for, but the 40th is other, and that's 52% of all of our clients.
The other. So
we can write for vertical niches, and we can also write for the long tail. And there's a lot that goes into it. So the first piece is really rethinking what a marketplace can be. And the second is reinventing what are the incentive structures for our marketplace in a way that's different than others. And if you're applying a new business model with that, with the availability of that talent and a SaaS platform, you can do a lot more. So I could talk more about that if you're interested in how we kind of.
I'm totally interested in it. I think it's fascinating, though. I mean, especially like the kind of numbers, like you said, doing over 40 industries. Are there some industries that you would say that you guys gravitate towards more? Like for us, we do a lot in the attorney space, and I know like you guys do a lot of work in the attorney space as well. We
do. I think, and thank you for being a client. I must appreciate that.
No worries.
We do write a ton for legal. We're really driven by our clients as far as where they want to take us. So there's kind of two ways to run a business like ours. We could build out a giant pool and basically say, right now we have over 100 legal writers in our pool that have proven that they can write for the legal industry. Mm-hmm. And then we have a pool of 10 attorneys that if our client's interested, we can have attorney editors as well. But we're basically doing that on client demand. We could build this out one by one, vertical by vertical, and target them, but we've been doing it much more in response to what our clients are pulling us towards.
Got it.
And I think it'll keep getting built out one by one. And they brought us into some seriously quirky businesses that we never thought we would be in, like writing about forklift technology. But you're an agency, you know how weird these things get.
I do, Steve, don't I? So let's just say, like, with all these writers and the different types of content that you're able to write, let's just say if you get, kind of a unicorn writer who writes something perfectly, is there a way that you can say, you know what, I want that writer there again. I want to keep this writer around, because now it's almost like the written language. It becomes part of what that writer's putting out for that business. Can you hold on to a writer?
I think so. So kind of. And I think kind of is the right answer that you actually want as a client. And that was kind of our rewriting of the business rules. Mm-hmm. So a few key tenets of the Verblio platform that are different that you're probably aware of, but most of your audience might not be.
Right.
One is that we changed the matching model, that most marketplaces are more command and control or select, meaning that you put in your business the work that you would like the writer to do, and then the company chooses those people for who's going to do them. They're basically saying, hey, you need 5 of these delivered this week. Mm-hmm. In our system, the writer chooses how much work they want to do and who they want to write for, and they apply. Mm-hmm. So then they're not guaranteed to get paid. And those two things are really important, both the speculative model and also the writers choosing the clients. So the clients put out their profile. This is what we're interested in. These are the level of expertise. We would like something that's more formal or more jokey. And the writers take a risk, and they basically apply for each one of those jobs.
Wow.
We think that has some powerful effects for our clients. One is the matching occurs really quickly. So mm-hmm. we're delivering content. I'm often told faster than anyone else in the industry by a lot, but generally a 1,000-word blog post is delivered within 48 hours if you are an existing customer. The first one might take a second, mm-hmm. But after you become an existing customer, we can do it faster. We can do it at scale, and it also takes a lot of the work out of the client's hands. So instead of you trying to review writers based on their profile, like you're going to Upwork and you're looking at what they look like and they have a resume, you're seeing exactly what they would write for your company, and is this a fit? And we think that's a benefit in multiple ways. One is you're judging a writer based on their product and what works for your company. Number one, we think it has some serious DEI importance as well, and that you're grading people based on, not on their profile, but based on their actual level of their work. And it saves you a ton of time. Like, who wants to go through a ton of writer profiles? Okay, so that was just the basic business model. I didn't actually answer your question. So then, how do they become your writer for life or be able to lock them in? So one of the other key principles of the Verblio platform is we believe in that you should have the right size team of writers. Mm-hmm. So you should have the writer that you like. Once that person posts something, you have a choice of accepting it or declining it. But once you accept it, if you liked it a lot, you can prefer them and basically put them into your team. Mm-hmm. Our goal is for every client to at least have a few people on their team so that they don't run into the classic challenge of why they needed us in the first place, which was they had a great in-house writer, the writer quit, now they need to retrain somebody else and do the whole process over. So with the Verblio platform, we're asking you to give all of your feedback to that one writer so that every writer that would ever write for you would see it. And that way we basically are training our platform and your team of writers so that basically you have an ongoing team that will be able to write for you ongoing without any of the, hopefully with better quality and also with less hiccups and no disruption to your business.
Right, and they actually become a little more familiar with you because now they're almost like a preferred writer for you now, right?
Exactly.
So, you remember the old saying, content is king. So if content is king, where does this put Verblio?
A really good spot this year. So, I wrote a post last year that was titled "Content is King," and then it got promoted during the pandemic. And I really think that's true. Like, the pandemic picked winners and losers, and it really it was a super hard time for so many businesses. And because we have so many, we have 1,000 active clients, we could see how many small businesses went down during those first 2 months in particular, and it was just heart-wrenching. Mm-hmm. So. So we're in a really good, and then content basically recovered. The trend that really happened is those who are committed to content being the fuel of the modern marketing engine doubled down, put more and more into it, and we saw bigger and bigger clients. And we rapidly moved up market. And if you're in the game, a couple of things happen. One is there's nothing else for you to do. There's very little other advertising out there. Outbound sales was really kind of became a turnoff. Paid marketing is becoming more hard. Everyone's seeing more of there's less competition. Then the content becomes more valuable. There's more eyeballs on it at home anyway. And it's becoming more clear that this is really building an annuity for your company. Yeah. Your content is going to keep paying off in clients. We didn't have any, we had one internal salesperson inbound. We had no outbound. We've been growing 100% every 2 years just from inbound traffic. And a lot of that was from the investment of the early founder who wrote a blog every single day. And so it works.
Well, I can tell you, I agree with you 100% because, during that, when things began in March of last year, that was our focus, and our agency's focus on. We're living proof of that. Is what we did. We doubled down, Steve. We doubled down. We created more content, and proud to say that we are a partner of Verblio as well. But we doubled down, and we felt the effects of it. The positive effects of it is what we felt from it. So. You just said, content was king that got promoted. So I would like to ask you now, what is the purpose of content? Now, I know it, but I want to imagine like our listeners on the other end or our viewers that they don't understand exactly what's going on. What is the purpose of creating content?
To me, the purpose of creating content is to put the power in the consumer's hands. The days of advertising are really... they've just changed. So it used to be you put out your message to a broad people, or a broad audience. You try to target them with your right message so they find you, or you're finding them at the right time, and they accept your message. And right now, the number of touch points of reviewing every single purchase online has multiple points. Like it's really in the consumer's hands. They have a lot of choices. They're going to choose the people that are answering their questions first, who are building their trust, who are providing something of value to them first. And so I think content is basically I kind of referenced this earlier, but is really the fuel of the modern marketing engine. It provides your link to your future audience. And the more that you're out there answering their questions in advance and building trust with them and building your brand, this is the new most effective marketing channel out there. And it's really kind of replacing the old school ad model.
The way I see it is it's almost like you want to rent or you want to own your audience. And the way, like you talked about it, I think content is definitely the gift that keeps on giving, right? Because you can actually score a new client or even a piece of business down the road from content you produced a year ago. It is that gift that can keep on giving. And I always ask a client, and when we talk about content and blogging content, newsletters, press release, everything else is, do you want to rent your audience or do you want to own your audience? And every time that you are actually paying even a traditional source or even buying ad time on Google, you are renting an audience. But when you have that content that lives and still breathes on your website, you begin to own your audience. So there's a big difference there. So I'd like to kind of piggyback what you said and just encourage people to be able to, invest in content.
I like that too. I think there's two other expressions that I like that I always go back to. And I think Dan Tyre from HubSpot always says, like, it's the difference between Red Bull and eating your broccoli and running. Like, one is going to keep you in shape for a really long time and one's going to give you a quick hit, which I always go back to that. The other one is, I love the concept of earned traffic versus paid traffic.
Yeah.
The concept that you have to work for content. It's not easy. The reason that this is so effective is because it's a lot of work to keep doing this and be consistent. And very few of your competitors are going to go out there and do it. So if you show the extra effort, it's going to pay off. So yeah. I like that term too.
It's definitely digital PR for sure. Where do you see content in the next 2 to 5 years, Steve? Because 10 years ago there wasn't Verblio or to the stage it is now. But where do you see it going?
So I see a few things. One is this content industry is super young. We're just at such an early phase. I think people are getting the companies that started off early are earning are still paying those dividends from their early investment, just like Verblio is. But it really started off as an arms race, which was who could create the most quality. And to me, the next phase of the next 2 to 5 years is going to be a rush to quality. Of what does quality means will need to be defined. But whoever has the best content, which to me is the most educational and entertaining. I think entertaining has been really left off the content marketing greatest hits. I think that'll be one of the keys. 2 is learning how to reuse your existing content. A lot of companies have built up all of this. Now, what are you going to do with it? Are you just going to leave it there and create another 2,000? So we focus a lot on revamping and refreshing content.
Great point, Steve.
And the last is really multi-channel. It's where we acquired a video company 3 years ago to turn all written content, as much of it as we could, into video. And I think there's going to be podcast into blog, and many little snippets of this could easily be the advertising campaign. And I think there's going to be a lot more mining for gold that you already have versus new content creation.
No, great. I agree with you. But you said something that stuck out to me just now. You said a rush to quality, but it wasn't a rush to quantity. Explain that for me.
Right. So I think a couple of big trends. So quality, I think, is going to be really important, both on the educational and on the entertainment side. And so I think the need to have somebody who represents your voice to speak in a specific way to your audience, and that doesn't mean to all audiences. It means to connect with yours. And that could be for having content that's where there's more subject matter expertise, but it also could be better researched, and or it could be written in more entertaining ways that's just more playful and enjoyable to consume. So I think that's one part of quality. The second is just going much more in depth. So I have an interesting stat from what we get to observe. So we get this interesting seats of watching the best digital marketers out there. What do they do with content? We're not leading this charge for them. We get to kind of to follow along. So one of them is that 4 years ago when I took over this company, we had less than 4% of what we wrote was over 1,000 words or 1,000-word blogs. At this point, we're at 67%, 1,000-word and plus. So hopefully that's a shocking number to your audience, because it is to me. And it basically means the arms race is about being more in depth and having longer pieces with more research than it is about writing quick stuff that gets consumed like candy.
Well, I want to kind of put this out there to the listeners too. I mean, when going through Verblio, it's not like you're going to a grocery store and just picking content off of a shelf. It's really something that is more designed for their business and their industry. Correct, Steve?
I'm really glad you brought that up. Thank you. Yeah, that's really important. I should have brought that up, which is we're relying on you to be the expert. You know your business better than anybody else. And the clients that are successful with us are putting a lot into their briefs for the writers. The writers are journalists. They can write about a lot of stuff, but they're not going to know your business better than you. And so that's really kind of one of the key tenets of the model is while you are getting support, you have a strategic partner like Verblio to help you do it. Content creation is still going to be hard, and you're still going to have to put a lot into it, and you're still going to have to figure out what your your audience wants to know.
Awesome. Well, Steve, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with something called the lightning round, okay? And in this, I think you're really going to enjoy it. All right? So we'll take a break, and we'll be right back. All right, and we are back in the AdCast with our wonderful guest, Mr. Steve Pockross. Let's give Steve a round of applause real quick, please. He's such a good sport. Great guest, Steve. One thing I did not ask you about is those 3 little letters, SEO, and how important is great content and quality content to SEO? Can you touch on that for me before we go into lightning round?
I will. I'm going to give you a giant disclaimer here, which is you know a lot more about this than I do. So I have these great seats. I get to watch great SEO agencies in action that are seeing how they use the content. So I can say that I think the nature of SEO is going to continue to change. It is let's just take a step back. SEO has got to be one of the strangest marketing channels of all time.
Oh man, it is.
It's deeply have you ever heard of an industry where the industry leader who owns the channel won't tell you what it is that you need to do in order to work it out. And so there's an entire sub-industry of experts that then try to figure it out, guess, and post things online, and they become industry gurus as opposed to the company that actually creates the platform. So we're all here guessing. We all know that it's going to change. The basic premise that I can say is the logic of answering your clients' or your audience's questions in a more educational and entertaining way than anybody else, more consistently and across a broader range, is always, logically, it's going to be better. Now, whether Google ranks you better and the algorithm works for you or not, I just feel like if you're doing the right things, you're going to cover as much of that ground as possible. It has consistently helped you find SEO before. There have definitely been different stages. And again, many of you guys know this, which stage one was get as much content out there, and we'll get you. It's a battle of the words. The more words you have, the more likely to win.
You said it. I feel like every time Google changes an algorithm, which is like, I see it as you putting together the puzzle, and then they pick up the puzzle and throw it down again and break it and say, put it back together again. It's how, like, every time they do an algorithm change, you have to figure it out. Like you said, I mean, that's totally true. Totally true.
So keep doing good content. Keep doing it consistently. I have a feeling it's going to work. I feel like I'm learning this on LinkedIn every week, as they're messing with their algorithm every week, and it's my main marketing platform for my podcast. And I will have weeks where it'll be like, you just got 8,000 views, and the next week it'll be 350 views, right. But there'll be more likes, and all I keep doing is I'm like, all right, let's just keep producing good content consistently every week. People will know where to go, and the algorithm will find me, even if I haven't found the algorithm quite yet.
Wow. So now, Steve, we are going to go into what we call the lightning round. All right, Steve, ready. I feel like I have you on a game show now with this theme music, don't I? All right, so now I want to ask you in the lightning round, I'm going to ask you about certain media. There's no right or wrong answer. I just want your opinion as quick as you can. So I'll ask you about television, and you can tell me your thoughts about television and marketing and advertising on television in this day and age. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, Steve. Radio.
Any channel where most marketers aren't going is an opportunity.
Television.
Only if you're the biggest, broadest, and have the most funding.
Newspaper.
There's still newspapers?
Outdoor.
Another opportunity like radio. People are just not going to, people aren't taking advantage of it nearly enough, and it's going to be one of those hidden gems where if you figure it out, you're going to have a key advantage that other people don't. But also really broad.
Social media.
Oh, so many different kinds. Great way to make impressions, great way to raise awareness, and terrible way of closing clients.
What is your favorite and your go-to social media platform?
I've given up on most others except LinkedIn. I like LinkedIn because it just feels more honest.
How about Facebook?
Hurts. Facebook hurts me. I think that I have a hard time. Personally, I have a hard time with the politics of the situation. Like the fact that there's no regulations in one direction or another, I find really challenging. But I also find it really challenging to market business in a personal space. And that just feels inherently like you're mixing your audience at the wrong time. And that's why LinkedIn feels like a better space for me.
Instagram.
Too old for it. I just don't use it. There's only so many you can do and keep up with and still have a job.
LinkedIn.
Love it. Love it. I think it's a really unique short-term opportunity for anyone who's not there. I think right now is going to be considered the heyday where people wish that they were there, making connections for free before they start charging for so much of this. And like any social media platform in its heyday, I think it's going to go down eventually. And as a marketer, you're going to have to be adaptive and dexterous and use it while you can. But that's the place that I think is the most opportunity right now.
And the last one, Google Ads.
We don't. Google Ads is the place where tech companies go who got lots of funding for VCs to try to buy their audience for way too much money against their other competitors.
Ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause to Mr. Steve Pockross of Verblio. Steve, you have been an amazing guest, and we want to thank you so much for being a wonderful guest and giving us your time. And tell me, what's next for Steve, and how do people find you?
Cool. I'm easy to find. I'm Steve Pockross. I'm on LinkedIn. I also have my podcast is Yes and Marketing. We're on all major platforms. It's kind of a liberal, artsy, big picture view of marketing inspiration could come from anywhere. Mm-hmm. And our company is at verblio.com, verblio.com. And we're a writing company. We try to make it really fun and engaging to read. So come check it out.
A great marketing company and a great writing company. I definitely endorse that as well. So, Steve, thank you so much. I also want to give a big thanks to Craft Creative, actually, for the production and the content of what we're doing right now. And also, I want to invite anyone else, if you feel this podcast has been useful to you, make sure you send it off, like it, subscribe it, and we are also available on all platforms. I want to thank our guest, Mr. Steve Pockross. Steve, have an amazing day.
Thanks so much, Eric.
Is the AdCast.